It's not like I have to hurry up and figure out what
Mm.
the right move is here so that I can get better. The act, the process, this dance of I need to learn to be in touch with what my needs are today. How much can I handle? How much can I push myself? How much do I need to protect? How much can I venture forward? How much do I need to pause? That's the recovery work. It's not what you end up doing. It's not I took 17 steps or I took 17,000 steps. It's
Yeah.
your discovery process of what would feel good to you in that day, encouraging yourself to move forward and protecting your need to slow down and repair. So if you're confused about that, perfect, you are doing the work.
So many of you tell me how confusing it is to be stuck in pain and fatigue and other chronic symptoms, even after seeing countless doctors. But here's the good news: these symptoms, they're not random, they're not even really unique, which is a great thing. And they are not a life sentence. When we change how the brain and the nervous system process threat and safety, symptoms can shift dramatically. I'm Raylan Agle, and this channel is where we learn about what helps people recover from conditions like ME/CFS, long COVID, chronic pain, and beyond through lived experience and also through the latest mind body science. And today's guest needs no introduction in the mind body world. I am so honored to welcome her here, Christie Uipi, Executive Director of the Better Mind Center, psychotherapist, recovered chronic pain patient, host of Curable's Like Mind, Like Body podcast, and a core developer of pain reprocessing therapy alongside Alan Gordon and Dr. Howard Schubiner. She is one of the clearest, most trusted voices in this field. And this conversation is truly one of the best we've ever had on this channel. In this interview, Christy shares the deceptively simple micro practice that she repeated hundreds of times a day that began to unwind her symptoms. Also, a powerful metaphor for the hidden bracing for impact feeling that many of us live with without even realizing it, and the two pronged framework she uses with clients to reduce fear, both fear about symptoms and fear generally in the rest of life. We dig into how to expand activity without it backfiring on you, and why shifting our language from chronic pain to chronic symptoms really does matter, and the paradigm shift that she wants to see in medicine before any treatment is prescribed for anyone. If you've ever thought, like, I understand the science, so why do I still feel like I'm stuck? This interview right now is for you. It's validating, it's practical, and it's full of takeaways that you can start using today. So let's dive in. Christy, I couldn't possibly be more excited to have you here. Thank you for doing this.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I feel like our mutual energy is going to explode the space.
This is so exciting. I'm sure my audience is well aware of your work, but it just is so incredible to, um, you know, tie it all in together. The chronic pain world, the ME/CFS, long COVID, all these conditions that we're seeing, all of this overlap that is happening with symptoms and recovery. So much to get into. But before we do, I know you've spoken openly about your own recovery from chronic pain. So could you share a little bit about that experience and then how did it lead you into this incredible work that you're doing now?
Of course, I'm always happy to be honest about what I've been through and what still pops up from time to time because recovery is not a straight line and my body still talks to me, but I can very happily share that I am out of the chronic symptom loop and it is a privilege to be here and I love getting to work with clients who are still in it because there is so much hope to get out of it. But yes, I must have had symptoms starting in childhood that were in retrospect neuroplastic in nature, but for me I didn't really come online to what was going on until I was in college. I started developing knee pain in both knees. So that's always a clue that the brain might be
Yeah.
involved because it came on in both knees. And I started having this feeling of I have bad knees. But then that progressed to a lot of other areas in my body. So eventually, one wrist started hurting when got to grad school, and then the other wrist started hurting. So then I had bad wrists and it would eventually spread to my neck and the doctors would tell me like, oh yeah, you have a weak or you have a very long neck, the reason you have so much pain is your neck is way too long. I've never
What?
been conscious about my neck before, but okay. And these different doctors in all different
Mm,
specialties, they always had a reason why there was something wrong with that area of my body. So the narratives just kept piling
mm,
on. I had bad knees, I had bad wrists, I had a bad neck. And I just started developing this relationship to my body that it was really fragile and prone to injury, which just generalized to prone to feeling really bad. So my relationship with my body was deteriorating because I was not getting any treatments that were remotely touching the root cause. I thought that I had different problems with every area of my body. And this was corresponding with a stressful time in my life, both because I was in grad school, funnily or not funnily enough, to become a therapist and eventually to specialize in pain treatment. So it was stressful not only because of my circumstances, but it was most stressful because of how I was treating myself. So I'm happy to get into that more now, later, or for another time. But a big piece of my symptoms was my relationship with myself was as fraught as my relationship to my symptoms was. So there was just no ease in any direction. I responded to my symptoms with a ton of frustration. I responded to myself with a ton of frustration. And that was just a huge downward spiral, honestly, that developed into a lot of frustration and rage with what was going on for me.
I wonder, I'm sure there are so many different things that contributed to this, but quite often, the people speak to here on the channel talk about it's a surprising number of small things that make really big shifts in the
Mhm.
recovery. So, looking back at your journey, were there any things that were surprising to you, like something you never would have expected to make such a difference because it was such a seemingly simple thing?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. Yes. There was one thing I did when I was first introduced to the idea of mind body symptoms. Um, that I sprinkled in throughout my day, probably like hundreds of times, when I found myself moving too quickly, either like cognitively, just too many things that I was thinking about, multitasking on too many different open tabs, or literally I was physically moving too quickly. I've shared this before, but prior to getting out of pain, if I was, say, in the grocery store and there was no one else in the aisle with me, I would run like from one end to the other. I was like, well, if I can go faster and what I need is not at the start of the aisle but the end, why wouldn't I go faster? And that was just my general take on life. Like,
Mhm.
if I could push harder, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So, either mentally or literally physically, if I was moving too fast, I would put my hand on my chest and tell myself, it's okay. You have time. And it seems like the first time I did it, it's not like nothing changed. My symptoms didn't like dissolve or even lessen at all the first time that I said it. But that's one thing I remember so clearly saying to myself hundreds of times and then developing that awareness of, whoa, my system is really trending towards overactivation. It likes that constant reassurance that it's okay to have like back of the chair energy.
I love that. I used to have a screensaver on my phone that said, "You are never in a rush," because
Yes.
all day long I was in a rush. I don't know why I was in a rush. Didn't matter how much time I had to do it fast.
Yes. I don't know why I was in a rush. I
Oh
really
my
relate to
goodness.
that.
It's crazy to have to remind yourself of a similar thing, 100 times a day. You are not in a rush. Just breathe.
Mhm.
Just breathe. So, I'm pretty safe to assume that this whole experience of yours personally shaped where you ended up professionally. So, why did you choose to specialize in chronic pain? How did you get to be, where you are now?
Ugh, the profound shift in my own quality of life was so motivating, and then it became honestly addicting seeing that same shift happen in clients. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but when you yourself go through this experience of feeling so limited by symptoms, like your world gets smaller and smaller for so many reasons, including like your physical mobility might be impacted, but also you just start self-isolating. Because for me, I was so resentful of everyone around me, especially because it happened at a young age, although this can happen at any age. I was so resentful of everyone around me. I was like I said, I was relating to my symptoms and to myself and to everyone and everything with so much frustration that I really limited myself. And coming out the other side of that and using my body in freeing and fun ways again, and re-engaging with friends from a more grounded place, like reestablishing my place in relationships, both healthy and less healthy ones. It was so expansive that the idea of specializing in anything like it never even crossed my mind. I've specialized in this, like I said, where I was in grad school to become a therapist, and I niched out really early, and I do not see an exit path. It's just too energy giving to watch someone reclaim that freedom in their body.
So, so many questions for you, but I'm probably a good place to get into right now is what is the approach that you use? Talk to us about how you work with clients to move past their symptoms.
Okay. I would be happy to. As a blanket statement, I don't think there is one right approach for all people, right? Like we're talking about helping someone internalize a sense of safety or a sense of feeling safer. And I offer that distinction because there are people who are working through chronic pain that have never felt safe. It's not like they're coming back into their body in a time like they're getting back in touch with their body when they used to feel safe, or like an earlier period in their life where they felt much calmer. Not everyone has that privilege and access. So for some people, feeling safe is a completely vague or inaccessible idea. For other people, it's much easier based on a million things: their lived experience, who they are, their support network, their identity. So even this idea of helping a client feel safe or safer is so loaded and so nuanced that the idea that there's one effective treatment for everyone, for me, I don't buy it and I don't see that. That being said, I do kind of camp out in a certain modality as a framework. Pain reprocessing therapy is a modality I have a lot of like heart in and put a lot of thought work in terms of its development. There's also research on PRT, pain reprocessing therapy. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar, or PRT. There's really encouraging research about its efficacy, and it can be effective in a short period of time. But it's the framework of thinking that PRT offers that really helps me with my clients. And again, I'm happy to get into more of that if you'd like. But this idea of everything we do can either be processed through a lens of threat or through a lens of safety is something that I think is beneficial as its own modality, and then also as a framework within which you can layer other modalities of your choice.
So, how do you even begin to introduce this to people? Because this is such a radically different way of thinking about symptoms and our body. And I
Mhm.
imagine people are a little bit skeptical off the start. So, how do you warm people up to this?
Yes. Yes. The skepticism is unfortunately always going to be in the water until there's a broader paradigm shift, right? Until your doctor down the street or your neighbor next door is using the language mind, body, and neuroplastic, the skepticism will be there. And I welcome it. I try to give really simple examples that are difficult to take issue with, like blushing. Blushing is a psychophysiologic response. When you blush, the color changes in your cheeks. You have a visible physical response to an emotional input. And I've never seen anyone who has an acute blushing episode, meaning they get embarrassed, they blush, and it goes away. I've never seen someone go to the doctor for that. Like, I think that's pretty accepted as a mind body reaction. People just don't use that language. They're like, oh, I'm having a mind body reaction. It's just they blush and they move on.
Yeah.
There's so many examples of that that society has already accepted as mind body. We just haven't given it that language. Chronic symptoms are no different. They're just lasting longer because the threat is not passing after 5 minutes or overnight.
So, what does that look like when you work with clients with chronic symptoms? How, like on any given week, what is involved for the person going through
Mhm.
this?
A lot of it is laying that foundation and that framework,
Yeah.
which I think is what you're speaking to, helping clients understand and really wrap their brain around. My brain is either contributing to or completely causing my symptoms. My symptoms are
Mm.
reversible in nature. If that's a brand new idea, most people are going to want some evidence to back that up. They're going to want to understand why that is. So, pain theory is really useful there. This idea that pain is a danger signal, symptoms of all kind, including fatigue, dizziness, tingling, lightheadedness, all of those are different danger signals in our body. And our brain is not always perfect when it comes to interpreting threat and danger. It's always going to err on the side of caution. And if you're a
Mhm.
person who trends anxious or like you and me, like trends towards racing through life, your threat detection mode might be a little bit off. So I always start with the framework and the pain theory to help someone get more on board or at least offer it. It's always ultimately the client's choice in terms of how they view their symptoms. All I can do is offer what I know and my expertise and then join that together with the client's understanding of their symptoms. And we can go from there. I usually go into a lot of like somatic based work from there to start working on the nervous system.
I'm wondering because I talk to a lot of people and I see a lot of comments on videos and I have people reaching out to me saying, I get all this. Like, I feel, I understand it. Like, I'm on board. I hear what you're saying
Mhm.
100%. I see what's happening, but yet I still feel stuck. And I don't seem to be moving past this, and the symptoms keep coming back. So, are there themes or places where you find that people are, getting a little bit stalled in their recovery, and how do you
Yeah.
move or how do you help people move through that?
Don't you just want to hug every single person who asks that?
Oh
It's
my goodness, yes.
because we've all asked that. Like we've all, everyone who has ever gotten to the other side of a symptom has wondered that, and it feels so lonely and isolating when you are in the moment of asking it. But yes, it's a great question, and I want to give an example maybe to demonstrate my thought process around it. If you were playing soccer with somebody, I haven't done it forever, so I'm not sure why this came to mind. But if you were kicking a ball back and forward to somebody and they launched the soccer ball your way and you could tell it wasn't headed towards your feet, it was headed towards your stomach. If you're paying attention, my hope would be that your first instinct would be to brace your stomach. If you had no time to move or jump out of the way,
Mm,
and you're not a professional soccer player to like do something fancy with it. You're going to brace your stomach. You're bracing for impact. That doesn't mean a threat has happened. There's no impact with your body yet, but your body takes a protective stance. Something bad might happen or is going to happen for so many different reasons, depending on the person's lived experience and their relationship to safety or their relationship to fear inducing or traumatic experiences in their lives. A person can develop sort of an internal bracing that's similar. And I don't necessarily mean physiologic bracing. I don't mean you're walking around physically tense, although you might be. I mean, your whole nervous system has learned to brace and be ready for the next bad thing or the next threat that's around the corner. But if you've done that for years, or that's your habitual way of existing in the world, why would you know that you're doing that? Why, if it's the water that you're
yeah.
swimming in, how would you even recognize that it was tense? It would feel normal to you. And that's where I see a lot of people getting stuck is they feel like they have all this awareness because they do. You're bright, you get it, you buy into mind body, like you understand pain is a danger signal. You're trying to tell yourself the sensations are safe and can't harm you, but you don't have that internal awareness yet that tells you, I am walking around braced for impact with all of this
Yeah.
internal intensity. And I really think that's where one-on-one work can be beneficial, and or exposing yourself to a lot of different recovery stories or ways of moving through this. If it's the water you swim in, you can't see it and you can't feel it, and that's not the fault of the person suffering.
Yeah, and I think I'd love to hear your experience, and I love that you say that there isn't one way that works for everybody because absolutely that's what I see in the people that I interview and the people who share their recovery with me. But and we're all still learning. The science around this is changing so
Mhm.
rapidly, and I think people understandably get a little bit confused about where to put their focus once they get into this way of thinking. Because some
Mhm.
people really talk about the importance of, things from childhood. Maybe you grew up in a stressful environment and you've developed this hypersensitive nervous system and you're always on high alert. And other people say, oh no, it has nothing to do with that. It's more about, the
Mhm.
emotions that you're carrying. Like you're overflowing with emotions and they're setting off alarms. And, some people come at it more like it's a miscommunication, it's a false alarm that's going on in your body. So, is there one particular way that you tend to see this, or are there more patterns with the people that
Hmm.
you work with? Yeah.
What a great question. You're a fantastic host. I love it. That's a great question. And it is something people struggle with, rightfully so. People who want so badly to get better, right? They're digesting all the material and then they pull their head out of the material, pull their head out of the water for a second. They're like, wait, why do I know so much and I still have no idea where to start? What am I
Yes.
supposed to do with all this knowledge?
Yes. And so is convinced that childhood trauma plays a role, but I don't feel like I have any. And then
Yeah.
someone else thinks I'm full of rage, but I'm not sure that I am, but maybe I just don't know
Yes.
because it's repressed. And I'm like, I don't know what
Oh
to
my
do.
gosh, right. I'm
Yeah.
missing something while checking over. It's hard. I try to keep the framework from which I operate as simple as I can to
Mm.
start. And again, we can always layer in after. That's why I like PRT so much, honestly, because it's that phrase, that starting foundation from which you can build or expand as necessary, if necessary. I share with clients there are two prongs to my approach. One is taking a look at the fears that you have specific to your symptoms or sensations. So, any worries, doubts, concerns you have as it relates to the bucket of your chronic symptoms, which could include: am I going to be in pain today? How do I manage this with my relationship? Will I ever get out of pain? So, anything to do with worry specific about your symptoms is one prong. The other prong is any fear that you have related to anything and everything else. So, your bucket of nervous system dysregulation, your bucket of fear inducing stimuli, your bucket of lived experiences that have impacted the safety or lack thereof that you feel in your body. And while that's a really big bucket, if we can use this same lens of my brain has a tendency to scan for threat and scan for safety, the aim is the same in both prongs, to help you gradually change your lens so that you are interpreting more and more of your symptoms through a lens of safety or a lens that is safer or calmer, and to interpret your experiences through a lens that is safe, safer, calmer, more empowered. So the through line has to do with threat, the through line has to do with fear. And even though it can feel like a game of whack a mole in the beginning, like, well, where should I focus first? Anywhere that you are reducing threat, anywhere that you are bringing the internal intensity down, anywhere where you are reducing fear, you are on the right path. You are doing something good for your nervous system and for your recovery anytime you're working on that.
And we often talk a lot about here that symptoms are a really important part of the recovery process because it's something
Mhm.
most of us understandably have become very afraid of them, and every time they come up we feel like we're going backwards and we're not getting better, and it's like, wow, how I was doing so well, how come I have symptoms again? So could you talk a little bit about why those symptoms are going to keep coming up and why they are important as we move through this, and unfortunately inevitable seems
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we both know symptoms suck. So I
Yeah.
don't expect people to be happy about them or feel pleasant toward them in the moment. But I like to remind people, like, your brain isn't broken. Your body is not trying to torture you. Your brain and your
Um,
body, your whole being is designed to feel good and comfortable. And these symptoms are an indication that a piece of you is trying to get back to homeostasis. It's an indication that something is off balance. And these symptoms are indicating a want to return to balance. It's a protective piece of yourself that actually wants to feel really good and is trying to get your attention to help you take appropriate action in order to get there. If I don't even want to think about where I'd be if I didn't have my symptoms, I think I'd be a much less healthy version of myself mentally, emotionally, and physically.
mm.
I think the amount of stress that I was inundating myself with would have led to other conditions as well. So the symptoms are a guiding force. And you don't you don't have to like them when you're experiencing them, but if you can recognize them as a piece of me that's guiding me toward feeling better, not just out of pain, but feeling better. It can take a lot of the resentment out. It's hard in the moment, but I think that when you retrospectively look back at your journey, it can often be a lot easier to feel that gratitude.
Yeah, and when you have that fear response wired around so many things, it's understandable that every time you try and bring in something new that you haven't done before, your nervous system's going to be a little bit like, "Hey, is this okay? Is this
Yeah.
okay?" Like we're just
Mhm.
sending some feelers out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so just thinking of it as a question, not a statement, not like this isn't safe. It's
Yeah.
asking you, you're like, "Is this safe?" And you're like, "Yeah, it is. It's okay. We can do this."
Mhm. I love that. Like, it's a double checking device. Like, it's
Yeah.
asking, like, "Are we okay to move forward?"
So I'm really excited to ask you a question, and it's a simple one, quote unquote, in theory, but it's something that people ask me, I would say, virtually daily. And I find it something that's challenging to answer. So I'd love to hear your insight or how you approach this with people because people ask me or in the comments all of the time. So I understand the science. I understand what's happening. I'm doing the somatic exercises. I'm
Mhm.
working on my fear. I'm doing the journaling. I'm doing all this stuff. But they're really understandably confused about like how much activity should I start doing? And should I wait until symptoms are gone before I do
Mhm.
activity? And should
Mhm.
I have like a schedule and or should symptoms all be gone before I add on any more? Like
Yeah.
it's a very confusing thing to figure out how to start expanding your world again. So how do you help people figure that out?
It is confusing, especially because again, there's different recovery programs will give you different
Yeah.
steps to try. For me in general, there is no one right thing to do in any case in terms of
Yeah.
introducing movement, reintroducing movement, how much exposure to do. There's no one right thing to do as much as there is a healthy way to approach it, meaning the more connected you are to how you are making that decision, the better off you're going to be. I definitely do not think you need to wait until you're symptom free or have had significant symptom reduction to start increasing your movement, increasing your exposures. And I definitely don't think you should be piling on movement that terrifies you, exposures that terrify
Yeah.
you, just to get through them faster. So it's a dance, and the dance is the work. It's not like I have to hurry up and figure out what
Mm.
the right move is here so that I can get better. The act, the process, this dance of I need to learn to be in touch with what my needs are today. How much can I handle? How much can I push myself? How much do I need to protect? How much can I venture forward? How much do I need to pause? That's the recovery work. It's not what you end up doing. It's not, I took 17 steps or I took
Yeah.
17,000 steps. It's
Yeah.
your discovery process of what would feel good to you in that day, encouraging yourself to move forward and protecting your need to slow down and repair. So if you're confused about that, perfect. You are doing the work.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. We all understandably we want a roadmap. We want like do
Yeah, me
these
too.
12 steps on this schedule and do 3 minutes
Mhm.
this day and it's like it's so individual and I interview some people that jump back into activity really quickly and it goes well and for
Yeah.
other people they really have to, tip their toe in
Yep.
and figure that out. So, yeah, very much an individual dance. I like that.
Mhm.
I'm curious what you've seen over the years because so my focus has been chronic fatigue syndrome. My mother had chronic fatigue syndrome.
Mhm.
I had it for about 10 years and then I started this channel on that topic. And then COVID happened and long COVID happened. And all of a sudden, I was having viewers who were seeing a lot of overlap. And we, in this space for quite a while, have been piggybacking on chronic pain science. Like,
Mhm.
we're just like,
Yeah.
teach us what you
Mhm.
know, because it seems to apply to us. So, and I do now hear people talking about this more broadly, not just in relation to pain, but into relation to many different conditions. So, what's it been like from your end, all the years doing this work, and how have you seen it expand and merge and change?
Yes. I'm so glad you're asking this question, and I find myself catching my own need, to change the language because when I started, at least again, where I started, where I was trained, I'm not saying this is true across the board, whatever, 10, 15 years ago, we just said chronic pain. We said chronic pain and we meant pain. And then we would have kind of add on these afterthoughts. Like
Mm.
it could also present as fatigue, dizziness, ringing in your ears, lightheadedness, itching in your toes. And there's been this nice and important transition to saying the words chronic symptoms or chronic sensations, chronic mind body disorders, to help better encompass the huge umbrella of sensations that can be neuroplastic or mind
Yeah.
body in nature. And we have that language change matters, because when you add something in on the end, like chronic, I have a whole lecture, chronic pain, chronic pain, chronic pain, chronic pain. On the last slide, say, if you have fatigue, same, same. Oh, invalidating to the person experiencing the fatigue, experiencing the symptom that they feel doesn't quite fit, feeling like the odd one out, wondering if, well, is it going to work just the same for me, or am I only
Mhm.
going to get 20% of the benefit because I don't have pain, I have fatigue or dizziness or what have you. We have to really hold this with open arms so that people recognize, and I mean this very positively, you are not unique. If you are experiencing a symptom or a sensation that you have deemed as mind body in nature, you are not unique, and all of this applies to you. Every mind
Yeah.
body symptom is as reversible as the next mind body symptom.
Yeah, it's been incredible to see things shift. And I was sort of laughing inside when you talked about that last slide and also fatigue. I was thinking that was a huge step forward for us getting that last slide added. Like we were excited because for a long time, we talked about like the Curable app, which I talk about here a ton and I love. But for a long time, I was just telling people like just ignore the word pain and change it to, CFS. And but now I hear across the space people talking more broadly about these things, which is incredible
Mhm.
because you're right. When you have long COVID and and you're trying to get past this and all the languages around pain, it's even harder to get that buy-in that this actually applies to me and that this could work.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
you feel doubtful and less hopeful, and you're trying so hard to cling on to this space. Like, no, there's no clinging necessary. You're a part of this space, and the same hope
Yeah.
for recovery applies.
Yeah. So I'd also love to hear from your experience, the work that you've been doing over these years. So you've seen how it's things have changed, in the last 10 years or so. Like, where do
Mhm.
you see this going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, here's hoping. I'm, there has been a cool shift just in the time I've, again, when I can't, I feel like I'm getting lost in time because I'm saying 10 to 15 years. We need to, when did I start this? Probably 13 years ago. There's been
Yeah.
a shift in that time, um, where mind body means something different than it used to. It used to just mean like
Yeah.
anything to do with stress reduction. Yeah, we got that covered. Like your doctor down the street would be like, oh, yeah, and stress reduction. I'm doing mind body work. I asked my client to reduce their stress. We're getting way more specific when we say mind body. We are meaning the brain is playing a literal, actual scientific role in your symptoms. I think that's great. Getting closer as a field. Where I'd like to see this going is pain, fatigue, dizziness, tinnitus, IBS, pelvic pain, you name it, the huge umbrella of chronic symptoms. When you go into your doctor's office, they first help you suss out the cause or contributing factors to your symptoms before they start treating them. That's all we're asking for.
That's crazy talk. I don't even know where you're coming coming up with this stuff.
Like, I'm not trying to, if whatever treatments help you, you make those decisions, and whatever, I'm not
Mm,
trying to stomp on any certain profession or training or what. Give them all the treatment options you want, but help someone in good faith, help someone understand where
yeah.
their symptoms are coming from so that they are educated and empowered when they start weeding through those treatment sources, so that we're not waiting 5, 10, 30 years to stumble upon your YouTube channel or the curable app to
Mm,
self-diagnose. It's mad. I'm
mm.
like getting mad. It's like maddening that this is what so many people's experience has been. So that is my hope, is that
Yeah.
there is this transition in the next 10 years, that there is an actual pause, a sussing out period where pain and other chronic symptoms are not just immediately triggered. Oh, these are the treatments that we do, but
Mm.
we stop and we slow down and say, what is causing those symptoms? Let's have a conversation about that first.
Yeah, and what I hear from so many people is that unfortunately the message that they're getting from the conventional medical system today is that because I don't know what is causing it, there is no cure. So you've got this for life. Be very careful. Like you're in a
Mhm.
very fragile state, and people leave just terrified. And it's, I'm very happy with it. Just a first step of just more open minded. Like I don't know, but that doesn't mean that we can't figure it out. So
Yeah.
let's let's start there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You've mentioned that
yeah.
curiosity a couple of times. It's a really, really gentle, nice, like aligning approach to take with a client to say, like, can we explore this together?
So I mentioned before we started recording that your podcast, Like Mind, Like Body, is my absolute favorite podcast. So this is
That's
just
so sweet.
surreal having you here, and you've got to interview, some of the leading voices in this field. I'm curious. I don't know if you can, pull them up on the
Mhm.
spot, but are there some of the most interesting insights that you've had from those conversations, or things that have
Mhm.
really stayed with you from some of these people you get to speak with?
Yes. I mean, I I learned something from every single guest. So these are the ones
Yeah.
that spring to mind, but like you said, I've been so lucky in terms of who I've gotten to speak to. I want to mention something that stands out from Callie Klebanoff's interview. She's been on twice, actually. She's a psychotherapist here in Los Angeles, and Daniel Lyman, who you just had as well. So your channel has been exposed to him. Um, Callie talks a lot about you're not going to get out of your symptoms the same way that you got into them. And that is not to suggest that any chronic symptom sufferer did this to themselves. I would never be able to stomach that if anyone ever were to suggest that I brought on my symptoms or caused them or was to blame. But what she meant by that was this way of relating so harshly and
Mhm.
fearfully and intensely to
Yeah.
ourselves and our symptoms is not the way that we're going to recover. Those are the mechanisms that help kind of foster an environment that leave us prone to developing these symptoms. Again, usually through no fault of our own, through our lived experience, through the deck of cards that we were dealt. So I love that. She would say, you're not going to get out of the symptoms in the same way that you got into them, which just felt like a nice takeaway for me. And then Daniel Lyman's is super simple. He always says, feelings are called feelings, not thinkings. And I say that. I love that. It's like you got to feel your feelings. It's a part of the process. You can't think your way through this.
I love that. And you know what? When I first got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, my very well meaning doctor, who I have a lot of respect for, told me likely what got you into this is what's going to get you out. Cause I was that very type A, high
Yes.
strung. So I clung to that. I'm like, yay, I have this personality that this is how I'm going to save myself with my
Oh,
checklist of my
I love that.
97 things that I'm going to do every day.
Mhm.
And I'm going to stress about it and have
Uh-huh.
spreadsheets. And so yeah, it's a really powerful message, and it's something that's coming up a lot in the recovery interviews that I do. It sounds so simple, but when people see big shifts, big leaps forward, and I say, "What do you attribute that to? What do you think is helping really move things along for you?" And the answer is usually some version of, I really lightened up. Like I stopped taking this all so seriously. I started thinking about what made me happy. Like I started just
Mhm.
living my life a little bit. I started
Mhm.
playing. I started having fun,
Oh,
which is,
so good.
yeah.
So good to hear. And again, to really, I think it's easier for us on this side of things to have this conversation and know that we are not meaning to cast blame on anyone who is still suffering. But to really make sure I'm leaving this expansive, we're not setting chronic symptom sufferers up to do that
Yeah.
lightening, right? Like, yes, all of that nervous system dysregulation that leaves us prone to these symptoms, that's true. And I don't think that's our fault. I think that's how we're wired. And I think most of that is just we're kind of along for the ride. And then it's up to us to undo or shift it. But then you couple in this biomedical model paradigm that tells you you're broken and sends you off to fail at all of these physical and structural treatments. And then you're told you got to lighten up. We're
Yeah.
not, we are not setting you up for success here.
No. No.
So
You
it's
gotta take this seriously. You gotta make it a priority. Now stop thinking about it so much, and you're fixating on it too much. And yeah,
so much.
it's such a minefield, but
Mhm.
you learn a lot. It is growth boot camp, that is for sure. I think just about every person I've interviewed, although they wouldn't wish this on anybody, has come through with which can be hard to hear when you're in the thick of it, but at the end, seeing some gratitude for the way it changes you and the way that you get to know yourself and the way that you're kinder to yourself and the way that you
Mhm.
suddenly have boundaries and you know that you should feel your emotions and all of this good
Yeah,
stuff. So,
that's the
yeah.
best.
So I'd like to try and leave people with, one or two small things that they can consider just doing or implementing that might help shift things in their recovery journey or, keep nudging them in the right direction. So do you have any, small suggestions or ideas for people
Sure.
that are in the thick of this right now?
Sure. So these I'm going to keep these simple because people are maybe this is interview is the first thing that someone hears on their journey to recovery, and because I think we
Mm.
could implement this any step of the way. So I'll give a sprinkle on some physical body based stuff and a sprinkle on some working mechanics, some cognitive ideas. Physically, I would suggest if we are working with something that is mind, body, and nature, right? So if we are working
Mhm.
with something that we believe is physically or structurally safe to move through, even if you have symptoms while moving, I really encourage you to get in touch with what you can do or what you'd like to do with your body to focus on the cans and the freedom that still exists. I got extremely lost on my pain journey focusing on what I couldn't do. Couldn't go for runs anymore, couldn't go for hikes anymore, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And then I didn't want to get back to movement. I could have, when this might is maybe a privilege of where I was in my journey. I could have gone to Zumba. I didn't want to do Zumba. I wanted to go on that really intense hike. I could have just taken a gentle walk in my neighborhood. I could have just walked to my backyard and stretched my arms in the sun for a few minutes, but I didn't want to do that. So I really encourage people to not lose sight of the benefit of movement. Even when you're dealing with
Mm.
something mind, body, and nature, movement is very freeing and helps us start to have a playful and nourishing relationship with our body again. And I think we lose that in the mind body recovery space and even in some of our treatments. So I really encourage you to think about what can I do with my body that is nourishing and feels good, even if it
Mhm.
is stretching your hands in the sun for a couple of minutes each
Oh,
day.
yeah, I love that.
And then cognitively, in terms of what you can be repeating or scripting to yourself, I want to take it back to my you have time, you have time, you have time. Come up with your that might not be the one that seems like it lands for both of us, our two of the pressures of the group. But for you to come up with a neutralizing statement that you could flood yourself with 100 times a day, hand on your chest, apply gentle pressure, have some physical connection with yourself and just wash yourself in that reassuring statement. It might be you have time. It might be there's space for this. It might be one step at a time. It could be I don't need to know how I get out. I need to trust that I get out. And just flood yourself with that reassurance can do so much with a chronically activated nervous system to consistently ask it to come back into your body can be really beneficial.
I love that you kept it general as a neutralizing statement because many people, myself included, are guilty of putting out specific phrases or things that we think like this will be helpful for
Mhm.
you, and then people say, well, that doesn't really resonate for me, or we start to think of it like a magic potion, but if I don't say those exact words, then am I going to get better? And but it's this most success I see with people I interview are the ones that take what's out there and then they adapt.
Mhm.
They listen to their gut, to their heart, and they make it work for them. Like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to leave that on the shelf. I like that. I'm going to tweak it a little bit.
Yes.
And yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, Christy, I could keep you here all week. Oh my goodness, this has been incredible. But for people listening, watching, please check the video description. You'll find the link to her website, the Better Mind Center, her Instagram account, which is incredible, has so much great content. Better with Christy. She's also the host of the Like Mind, Like Body podcast. As I said, one of my favorites, and also heavily involved with the Curable app. And I have a link for a free trial if people want to check it out. That we'll put that in the video description as well. But just so grateful for you, all the work that you've done, leading the way to where we are now. And I can't even imagine the ripple impact that you've had on the world and continue to have. So just Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with my audience and just for being the amazing person that you are and all the work that you do.
Well, I'm so touched. I'm so touched. This was such a fun visit with you. And truly, you have such an important voice in the space. And I am so grateful to you and all of the heart that you've put in it. I can feel, I can see it in your videos, but I can feel it being with you. Like your heart is in this on top of everything you know, on top of your expertise. So thank you for sharing the mic with me. It meant a lot.
Ah, very kind of you to say. And we talked about Daniel Lyman, who you know well, and he's also incredible. So I'll link his interview here if people
Yay.
want to check that out. If what you're hearing now, you're like, I need to hear more of this. He's got a lot of incredible insights as well. So thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you again, Christy. And I hope to see you in this next interview with Daniel. Bye, everyone.